Once again, we've got Lindsay Moon back here in the webinar studio, I guess I'll say. Um, and she's with Searchlight Lending. She was with us most recently to talk about financing ADUs. And today we're going to be talking about SIPs, structurally insulated panels, and prefab building. And I wanted to bring Lindsay back because when we talk about prefab, it often means a lot more than most people think. It's not just a home that comes on the back of a truck that gets craned into place. There are a lot of options in the prefab space, and SIPs are one of them that often gets mentioned, but not often in detail. And it is a fairly unique building technology that can be used to great effect with ADUs. Um, and so I wanted to bring Lindsay back to talk about both her experience, her extensive experience with SIPs, but also kind of how that dovetails with some of the financing stuff that she does as well. And just to give a background on Lindsay, if this is the first time you're seeing her at the ADU Center's webinars, she's with Searchlight Lending, which is a full service independent real estate brokerage that specializes in finding both in the box and out of the box financing solutions. She's a licensed broker and former general contractor, and she brings great home and construction knowledge to the Searchlight team. She works double time in combining her efforts as a residential and commercial broker with Searchlight and as a prefab builder. So thank you, Lindsay, for joining us. And I'm really excited to hear more about SIPs. I've seen some of them in construction, but in truth, I don't actually know a lot of the details about SIPs myself. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have to share with us today.
That's such a nice intro, and yeah, this is really close to my heart. And I've been working with these for a long time. Actually, SIPs, which is an acronym for Structurally Insulated Panels, have been around for like 50 or 60 years, but
Huh.
the price point of them has been just not able to match what we call, and you're going to hear me say, stick frame construction, which is our like traditional method of building. Um, until maybe, I don't know, just in the last 5 years or so, we've really been able to show not only is, I mean, it's super green, the product, and that's definitely a great benefit. But now it's cheaper, greener, faster. It's like, are you kidding?
So
Like,
all great
what's the
things.
catch?
Yeah.
And I have so many people that try to like bust holes in the product, and it's really taking off. So I'm excited for it because it's such a great way to they're utilized for residential, commercial. We can do them for ADUs all the way up to 5 stories. So
Oh wow.
yeah, it's an amazing product, and it just provides a much more finished, completed, greener product too at the end of it all, not just in the build process. So let's dive in and I'll tell you more. But I'm going to touch too on just like you talked about a few of the different ways that we can build, and just kind of the way that construction is going in the future. So
Now,
uh,
before we
yeah,
started, you had a sample, so I want to if you could show the sample of what a
sure.
SIPs sandwich looks like.
Yes, yes, absolutely. A sip sandwich. So, used for floors, walls, and the roof. This is a very small version. They're obviously much thicker. It's usually about 5.5 inches for standard build. And this is completely recycled material. This is OSB, which is oriented strand board. It is completely structural, so it provides a tremendous amount of structure to the unit. And this is expanded polystyrene, which is also a recycled material. And there is no off gassing of either product, no VOCs, no CFCs, and
Wow.
then its ability to retain its indoor temperature and air quality is just unparalleled. So that's,
Oh,
yeah, a panel.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a long overdue update to building, the way that we build, it's just so antiquated. Um, look how far we've come, I mean, it's amazing like how much progress we've made in so many different ways, and we're just so forward thinking, but construction has not changed very much in like 150 years. So why are we not using these building methods? And I come across this all the time, and I get a lot of kind of finger pointing of architects saying, "Well, we need more builders to know how to build different ways," and the builders say, "Well, we need more architects to design this," and it just kind of comes down to like familiarity and just well, this is the way I've been building, this is the what we're used to, why ruin a good thing? But it's really wasteful. It's not effective. The lumber today too, the quality of lumber is just so poor, and it's really not a sustainable or a practice, and it's just really not helping our planet in many ways at all.
Yeah,
So,
I saw that
um,
20 years ago when I was building homes, just how we were working on Victorians and the quality of the 2 by 4s in the Victorian versus what we were replacing it with was staggering.
yeah,
And that was 20 years ago.
yeah, it's truly amazing. And with that though too, I think, I think I know that homes are going to be built much more in a factory. And as you can see by this picture, this is a modular factory, but they're still building stick frame. So with these SIP panels, you can build, whether you're doing the modular, you can build faster, greener, and cheaper within the factory or on site. So, modular, and I'll dive into modular, can have some access issues. So utilizing these panels, whether you're building within the factory or not, it applies to both situations. But I do think we're really going to see that combination of more of a factory build, more robotics, more AI. There's like 3D printing, which I'll dive into. There's a lot of changes to the way that we can build that are really going to benefit us in the long run and make it easier and greener. Um, let's dive into modular here. It truly is one of the fastest ways to build. But when I talk to builders and developers and even homeowners, they admit that we can only do modular to about 50% of job sites, if that. Power lines, trees, road access issues, the crane can't get. Modular is literally building the entire unit within a factory, putting it on a truck and sending it to the site. The foundation is built and it gets punked down. So it can be a great way to build. It can be also extremely expensive with the crane and all of those added costs. And then further, there can be some design limitations because it is truly a box that needs to fit on a truck. So it can be, there can be some boxiness to some of the designs, but I do believe that modular is a great way to build. Both in residential and commercial. And it's what's super cool too is there's now little things like they're coming up with like insertable kitchens and baths so that it's really like you putting the box down and then the finishing of your your home is just going faster and faster. So lots of exciting things going there with modular.
This is
Uh,
Site access is definitely something we see a lot here at the ADU center is
yeah.
folks who would be a great candidate for a modular home, particularly for speed. I think
Mhm.
the cost of project completion or the time to project completion is faster, but site access rules it out completely. They just, and we're going to see this. We see this in Marin with the high slopes and the heavily wooded areas, and like Sausalito and things like that, where they're just not going to get a house down those roads. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it does rule it out for a lot of folks as what would otherwise be a really good solution.
What's also super impressive is that with when it's an ADU and using these SIPs, you're putting up your shell of a building within a day or 2. So, not only is it super impressive, but it's a lot more secure because once you can kind of button up your site, you're kind of at a more secure that you're really at a major risk. Most builders know and understand when you're in that framing stage. There's just so much risk. There's a lot of security, access issues, things like
Yeah.
that, that you can really minimize this way. So, yeah. So let's dive into some structurally insulated panels, which you can see some installations going on the right. The project on the bottom is actually a house in Marin in Mill Valley. I was working on that project starting in 2019, and just with permitting issues and that wasn't just because of SIPs. I don't want SIPs is actually has no promise with permitting, but it was permitting in COVID that really kind of took its time to get the project underway. But now when you drive by the home, you almost don't know that it's a SIP home because now that the exterior is on, it just looks like your average home, and there really are no design limitations with SIPs. We even have like curved panels, so can
Oh,
really
wow.
go. Yeah, it's really interesting. Um, so, like I said, SIPs they connect together, kind of like Lincoln Logs or Lego. They've been around for 60 years or so. They are greener, they're cheaper, they're more efficient, they're faster, they're stronger. I mean, it is truly a no-brainer that we just need to start building this way and these more modular ways, and it's coming anyway. So, let's embrace it. And again, I think it's really going to help with the ADU and housing crises that we have. Um, you're saving on the labor costs in the building, your material costs. All of the panels are cut to size within the factory. So it comes with the schematic and everything. One thing to mention though is you have to start working with SIPs right from the get-go. If what you're submitting into the building department has to be your plan set. And the more that you deviate from that, the more it's going to cost you.
Right.
So you have to work with me or whomever to get, SIPs needs to be a part of your original plan set as you start to develop this. And not
Now,
only that, it can also help expedite that process as well.
can someone take like a traditional design, say they find it sort of off the shelf plans for an ADU, can they take the traditional design and have it converted to a SIPS uh, styled ADU, SIPS construct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I do other than my financing, my big umbrella of all that I do, and I have teams that help me with all of this. But yes, it's a great way to expedite it is finding a set of plans online, uh, getting someone to kind of tweak it for your job site, for your site, sorry, construction mode, and then we kind of take it from there, provide structural engineering, the SIP plan, so that you've got this cohesive package that you then submit for your building to permit. Um, so absolutely, yeah,
Nice.
there's great ways to really expedite that. But it's also nice sometimes to, especially with the ADUs, if you're a working professional, these ADU companies that kind of take you through that pre-construction process and get you and through the entire build process is really understated and can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Doing it yourself is a big project. I mean, you are building a house from the ground up, and
Yeah.
I tell that to people every day. You have to remember that there are no corners being cut here, and there's really not that many economies of scale. Every single trade, every single item goes into this ADU as would a new home.
Yeah,
Um,
it's something we tell homeowners all the time that, ADU, the whole designation ADU, the special rules around ADU, those are all planning code issues. And that when you actually get to the building part, you're building a house in California. It could be 200 square feet, it could be 1,200 square feet, but it still has to meet every code that the California building code has, which is extensive. It's a big project. No matter the size of the ADU, it's a big project.
Absolutely. Yeah. hmm One thing too I have on here is that SIPs can also be used for additions. So we can tie into the existing conditions of a home or, a traditional stick frame. It's certainly possible. It's not always easy, but it is something to consider as well. And I just want to touch too on some of the other methods of construction that I think are really exciting and are also absolutely viable and are are up and coming. The 3D printed homes, seeing these internationally, it's kind of a composite material that is a structural material that is used as the ink, and you actually print the home. Some of them, the printer is on site, some of them are in within a factory. We also touched upon like the factory built finished interiors, like the kitchens and baths are what really drives a lot of the finishing of a project if you're finishing on site because of all the cabinetry and tile and finishes that go along with it. So, to be able to kind of have that completed and just ready is very exciting. And just in terms of ADUs, small homes, tiny homes, we have so much space in our own backyard and in our existing footprint that's not going to cause crowding or there's just so many families right now that I talk to every day that are doing this for their family to live closer together, because homes are expensive, and there's also some new laws coming down that I'll touch upon where there are new ways to create home ownership with a smaller piece of land, and I'm super excited of where housing is going, especially with the ADU push. And then also, there are a lot of different panelized systems out there. Some do not meet California building code. The one that I work with absolutely does. Here in California. But there's also some really cool other methods out there. Like I believe hemp is going to be a really amazing product for potentially panelized systems. There's hempcrete out there, which is kind of a cross between concrete and hemp. Straw bale, rammed earth. There's a lot of really cool ways of building that are greener and better than our kind of traditional methods. So I want to give a shout out to those too, because they're not always cheaper, but they are definitely something to consider for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of green benefits there. But among the sort of new and emerging and sort of rediscovered building technologies, I would think that if you're going to 3D print an ADU, your building department is probably not going to be too familiar with that kind of construction method.
Mhm.
But with SIPs being around for, you said, about 60 years, am I right in assuming that cities and planning departments and building departments are you're not going to run into issues when you try and build with a SIP opposed to, say, a 3D printed building?
As opposed to 3D and modular, because they are very different in that the homes are being built a very different way, and some of them, depending on if it's in the factory, the whole home being shipped to the site, not all lenders, especially in a conventional realm, do embrace the alternate building methods, but SIPs is no problem,
Wow.
because it is considered, it's like your lumber. Like you've got different materials that are being delivered to the site to connect and create this home. So the panels are considered just that. It's not like you're trucking a home down the road. These panels get delivered to the site, and then you connect them, and then you finish. And I'm always happy to go into a deep dive of how that all plays out, because it's a very simple process. But you start thinking, what? How does what about the mechanical and electrical and plumbing and all of this? And yeah, it's very simple, very easy,
These are all
and it's
solved
very
solved
cool.
problems.
Pardon?
These are all solved problems already.
Yes,
People.
solved problems, fire sprinklers, complete all of these things are completely we have something for that.
Nice.
So yes, now when yeah, like if I spoke to someone 5 years ago about building with SIPs and the financing for SIPs, they'd be kind of scratching their head, maybe not really understanding what it is. But things have really changed, and I've really been trying to do a little legwork too, since both of my worlds connect so well, to try to make sure that lenders do understand this way of construction. So yeah, uh, they are on board, and I have not found any issues with finding financing for them. It's very cool, and uh, with construction loans too, it's always about like this release of payments. There's a draw schedule, and it just makes that so much smoother. It's very similar to an existing construction loan for like a traditional stick frame. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm an independent mortgage broker, so I work with uh, well, I'm so fortunate. I work with thousands of different lenders on a wholesale level. So I'm able to find all of these different loan products for my clients, and whether it's an ADU or anything and everything, both in qualifying and types of real estate and types of loans. Um, and a couple of other noteworthy things. One, I'm just seeing so many people. I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg with ADUs. So many people are really starting to entertain this. So many of my clients have now built their ADUs. They're seeing the return on their investment almost, especially in the Bay Area, almost immediately, if
Right.
not immediately, which is so exciting to see, because there was some kind of trepidation at the beginning of this kind of takeoff of ADUs. Like, well, when do I see that return on my investment? But immediate if you're planning on renting it out, you're immediately creating an income stream of a rental property. So yeah, it's super exciting that this is happening and creating more housing, more home ownership. Um, Another thing that's really important too is just the fact that construction is changing regardless, and a lot more green laws and mandates are coming down the line, especially in commercial, but also in housing is right behind with
Yeah.
zero net energy for new homes. It's super important, and SIPS applies to zero net energy. They SIPS have won many different green awards, lead awards, anything and everything. SIPS has probably won an award for in terms of green building. And another exciting thing too is with a zero net energy home build or green energy upgrades, you can actually get tax credits from the federal government, $5,000 per unit. Let's say you're an investor and you're building like 10 ADUs. Well, that's 5,000 times 10. It's a nice chunk of money back in your pocket, right? And then $2,000 from the state of California. So $7,000 per unit back
That's great.
is, yeah, that could maybe pay for most of your permit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that we're seeing with the building codes and with every update of the California building codes, which happen every 3 years. Most of the change that we're seeing comes from energy efficiency, net zero energy, air filtration, air quality. That's where all it seems like the most of the development is happening in terms of the changes to the codes. I mean, there are other things obviously in the building codes that are updated as well, but that's where it's uh, increasingly we're seeing houses having to, particularly with ADUs, be super insulated, have deeper wall structures, have better air filtration methodologies to keep these houses healthier and greener. And it can be a challenge to fit that stuff into a small space. And if meets those requirements already, and presumably future requirements as well, it's a good fit there. Especially if it can be done for faster, for less money, for all the benefits of traditional construction, but with with some additional benefits on top. That's a really good combination.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to touch on too are these new laws of SB 6, SB 9, and AB 1033, which I mean, well, we've as members of Casita have been a part of the Casita Coalition, a nonprofit really dedicated to pushing more ADU and more housing here in California. These new laws are specifically designed to help create more housing in a positive way. And SB 6 is a law where enabling all of this underutilized commercial space to just like expediting that process of being able to convert that from commercial, which is not really being used, to either mixed use or residential. SB 9 is the ability to take some lots and split, but both build up to 3 additional units and also split those lots. And then AB 1033 is a bit complicated, but is the ability to condoize your ADU and basically create condo and more home ownership. You can do this on a small scale or a large scale, but we as citizens have to really encourage the biggest thing about AB 1033 is these local jurisdictions have to opt into
Yeah.
this first. And so we have to encourage those that, like, get rid of this not in my backyard in NIMBYism and more, yes, in my backyard, this does make sense. And get this the ability for this to happen, because I get a lot of people asking me and wanting to do this, and I'm like, well, we are at the very, very beginning
Yeah.
stages. We're going to be pioneers here, but the first and foremost is making sure that your uh, city is allowing for that to begin with.
That's
Um,
that's a really good point. I think AB 1033, the condoization law, is really. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it,
Mhm.
um, but I think it's a really really interesting one for housing equity and for multi generational housing.
Very.
In that, if you build an ADU and then condoize the project so that the house and the ADU are, two members of the tiniest condo association,
Exactly.
if you can, your kids or your aging parents can buy that condo, build equity, their access to additional financing options that maybe aren't there for an ADU. There are a lot of options that
So cool.
so
Yeah.
cool. And as you said, it's opt in. And I was having a conversation with a homeowner about this 2 weeks ago. I've talked to a number of the jurisdictions in which we work, and they're sort of like, yeah, we know it's there. We're not going to do anything about it until we're either directed by our city council or board of supervisors, or we have a project come across our desk. Cities are naturally, they're reactive. They don't do something generally unless they have to because there's a project demanding it. And one of the discussions I had with both a homeowner and a planner about this was, the planner basically said, if you have homeowners who want this, tell them to talk to their elected officials. Show up at a board of supervisors meeting and give public comment that they want their jurisdiction, their town, their county to sign on to AB 1033 and to put a process in place, because it's not going to happen otherwise, because the planning departments have so many things to deal with, that AB 1033 is really low priority until the citizens make it a priority for them. So that's a call to action. I think it's a really, it's not without its flaws. There are costs involved in condoizing a project, but I think for some folks, it's good to have that option. We don't currently have that option. And it's going to be up to homeowners, hopefully people watching this webinar, to contact their elected officials and say, hey, we really want the city to do something about AB 1033, to put a process in place.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to take to get the cities to buy in.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're here for, right? To talk to people about like how to do these things, both, how to move forward with your permits and how to move forward with financing, how to move forward with building better and greener. So yeah, I'm super excited of the way where SIPs are. I don't know. I think just a lot of people have uh, just for whatever reason, and also certainly financial, but it's the tide is turning, and a lot more projects are happening with SIPs nationwide. And so I'm excited about how this can really solve for just making construction much
Yeah.
more accessible, so much greener, so much cheaper. I mean, it's still expensive, don't get me wrong. It's like there's
It's
one,
construction, yeah.
and then also finishes. It's like all those fancy finishes that really drive it too. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
no,
this is thank you. This has been great. This has been really helpful, and I think we look at all these pieces really from a multifaceted perspective, and everywhere we can try and reduce costs because you're right. Construction is expensive in California. It's always going to be expensive in California. That's never going to go away. But anywhere where you can reduce costs but still get a really good outcome, whether that's permitting costs or building costs or design costs or engineering costs, every aspect where we can turn the cost down a little bit can help make more projects available for more people to make these projects work in a way that they might not otherwise. So this has been great. Thank you for the information about SIPs. I'm looking forward to seeing. I think I've seen one SIPs project so far in person. I'm looking forward to seeing more of them because I do think it's a really cool building technology that it deserves a bigger audience.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully this will help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully. Cool. Well, thank you, Lindsay. And then I'm sure we'll have you back again on other subjects in the future. But this has been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, and I encourage people to reach out and talk to me about their scenario. Yeah, it's really important that you connect with a good mortgage officer to really talk about what you want to do and what your plans are, whether you're ready to proceed now or down the line.
Great. Well, we'll put
Yeah,
we'll put your contact information in the information below on this video on YouTube, and we'll link to the last conversation we had about financing your ADU as well, so people can get kind of the broader picture.
sounds good. Thanks,
Great.
Scott.
Thanks.